Thanks for getting us added on here. It is 1:33, and we'll go ahead and call our Health, Housing, Homelessness, and Human Services Committee meeting to order. It is Monday, October 20th, 2025. Supervisor Alejo and myself, Wendy Rudofsky, are joining via Zoom. We're also live in the Monterey room in Salinas, as well as from the District 4 Supervisor office here in Marina. And it sounds like Supervisor Alejo is joining via the illness clause today?
Just cause due to illness.
Just cause due to illness. And you're, do you have to make the announcement about being alone in your room or whoever?
Yeah, I'm alone here.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Let's see here. Do we have any additions or corrections to our agenda today?
There are none.
There are none. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make public comment on items under the jurisdiction of the committee but not otherwise on the agenda today?
Sure.
Anyone approaching in the Monterey room?
Nobody in the Monterey room.
Eventually,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have to
And no
reposition
hands
myself.
raised.
No, Wes is
No
going
hands raised. Okay, got it.
Oh, actually Wes is going
So
to.
we do have Wes. Okay, thanks for joining us, Wes. We'll put 2 minutes on the clock. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. I guess I was hoping that I could get permission to go to the side right here, just so I can capture the presenters' faces. Barring that, I suppose at least get a second camera for the front right here, so then that way you can see people. Because I have friends that read lips, and so I've kind of had to make that a standard. I guess I also wanted to mention a little bit about how I got a new nonprofit. It's helping you get support, or HUGS, H-U-G-S, with the U, letter U. We're going to have a 10-year anniversary at the Steinbeck Center on January 17th. It'll be of what started was a Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, is who asked me to start the Homeless Union. I happen to be the charter member, the first one. We have 30 California homeless unions around the state, at least another 10, 15 states that I'm aware of. Around the nation, so we are part of the National Union of Homeless, California Homeless Union, and we'll have at least probably 12 different presenters. It'll be free. It'll be more focused toward the audience of folks who live outside, and how we can create a easier bridge. I suppose there's a lot of people who fought jurisdictions and won for sanctioned encampments and their own place to be, and just not to be robbed. So people can do pro se lawsuits, file a claim against the county, and then when that fails, you do a small claims court. And so now people start generating, what is the value of what I've lost? How much is it going to cost to replace it? Am I going to be a criminal for trying to re-up on my stuff, and where does that go? There's a lot of bridge of that last mile that needs to go, and hopefully you start taking that serious, especially in Encampment Resolution Policy, because we got to stop killing people.
Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your comments. And I'm going to just ask, I know we've got council in the room in terms of where we have for videoing. We spoke after the last meeting about the best location for video so that we could capture the presenters who are speaking. And I'll just ask council to work with Wes directly as we continue to make sure that we can capture the faces of the speakers.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on, we have a presentation about our Encampment Resolution Funding opportunity. With Roxanne Wilson.
Wendy, before we get there, can I just make one comment on the record? It was, Supervisor earlier said it, but I think it was before we got called to order. He's appearing remotely under the Just Cause provision of the Brown Act, just to put that on the record. Okay, thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Share. This will be a short presentation on 2 project proposals for the next round of Encampment Resolution Funding. As you are mostly aware in this room, the county has pursued and received 3 previous rounds of Encampment Resolution Funding to address unsheltered homelessness along the the Salinas River outside of Soledad and King City, and also the Pajaro levee. Collectively, that was about $20 million, and I apologize, I don't know what I did. Please give me a second, I'm in the wrong screen on my computer, there we go. And all 3 of those capital projects are slated to open over the next 6 months, with the one in Watsonville opening hopefully by the end of next month, the one in Soledad opening in December, and the one in King City opening in April. So to that end, I am putting on the table the consideration of 2 more encampment resolution proposals to address unsheltered homelessness in the jurisdictional boundaries of the City of Salinas. The first project, it is going to include street outreach, the development of another low barrier navigation center, and of course rapid rehousing so we could get people out of the shelter and into permanent housing. The city owns a property on Market. They are going to their housing commission tomorrow to get support for them to enter into an agreement with the county so we can pursue this grant together. This project on Market Street would include the capital expenses needed to bring the project up to code, and it will also include about 3 years of services, which will help people develop life skills, gain employment, and also offer them temporary shelter. And then of course there's rapid rehousing. As we are also aware, the City of Salinas owns several other, I wouldn't say own, but the City of Salinas is partners to several other permanent supportive housing projects that are also slated to open. Unfortunately, due to the federal climate, there is no vouchers that's available to go to those projects. And we will talk about another project that we're proposing as well a little bit later in this presentation. But for this particular proposal, we are looking at focusing on the Davis Street corridor. So that includes Veranda, Post Drive, West Market, and there's the Davis Street Bridge. The second proposal is to help people who are experiencing homelessness in Chinatown. Because the Chinatown Navigation Center is expected to close, we would want to prioritize those folks as well if we were to get funded. And in this project, we are looking at, again, street outreach, and then instead of interim shelter, we are looking at directly giving them access to permanent housing, either through rapid rehousing or supporting, rental subsidies through permanent supportive housing interventions. Again, tying back to those empty assets that the City of Salinas is about to have pretty soon. This presentation is to the 2 supervisors so we can gain your support and also hear any other questions, comments, suggestions that you have. And that's the end of it. It'll be fast, I told you.
Yes, that was fast. Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you for just staying so on top of these opportunities and bringing them forward to us. It's just really, really important that we're taking advantage of these funding opportunities every chance we get. Supervisor Alejo, it sounds like your district, and I'll let you jump in with some comments.
Yeah, partially mine, partially Glen Church's district on Davis Road. But I wanted to say thank you, Roxanne. Obviously, we've talked already about, the county has talked to the City of Salinas on this, and so they're ready to proceed. We're just trying to tag team on this effort, right? If you could just elaborate on where the city is in terms of applying, and when is the deadline to submit the ERF grant proposals?
The state is pretty behind on releasing the encampment resolution request for funding applications, I think, or request for applications, NOFA. We are expected that they would open it before the end of this year, and we are expected that it would be due by maybe the latest February. The city is in an interesting position right now where their current city council wants them to focus more on economic development. So because the county has such extensive history at this point now with pursuing and being awarded Encampment Resolution Funding, and we certainly have an interest in assisting wherever we can, there is a MOU that we've developed with the city. It's planning on going to the board on November 4th for approval, where it shows that we will be responsible for pursuing the grant, similar to what we have with Soledad, but the city will be responsible for all of the capital improvements. And then we are working with the Coalition of Homeless Services Providers for us to identify a service provider for the project. That's the first proposal. The second sorry, Supervisor?
No, I was gonna just clarify that, so we will be lead on the application then?
Correct. But we will not own any assets in this
Right.
situation.
Okay.
The second proposal is referencing the home keys. Collectively, there's about 150 units that's in the City of Salinas that will be coming online over different periods of time. It's all permanent supportive housing, so it's for people who are chronically homeless and have an identified disability. There certainly is a need in the City of Salinas, considering they have half of the entire unsheltered population for the entire county. And again, just trying to figure out where we could leverage our different assets and resources, and considering the fact again that we have been successful, we think that we should pursue it. And the second one is strictly rental assistance and outreach. It's all services that we're offering.
Great. Well, Roxanne, like Supervisor Askew said, we're very grateful that you're willing to help us on these applications, and to see where we can partner with the City of Salinas and our nonprofit homeless service providers. That's, I think, a win-win for the community, to bring in as much resources as we can while they're still available, to put to good use. So thank you for that, and I'm fully on board on both applications.
Thank you, sir.
And so, what would the next steps be, Roxanne? What else do you need from this committee? Do we need to go to the full board? Does this need to go to the full board for direction?
Correct. We will be going to the full board. We have a scheduled item on November 4th to talk about the two different proposals and to get approval for the CAO to sign the MOU between the city and the county. And then we just submit the application and wait. Unfortunately, this year, the state has significantly reduced the amount of money that's available in the ERF. There's only $100 million that's available. It's kind of odd to compete against ourselves. But we have had experience in the past where we submitted 2 applications and was awarded both.
Okay,
And
excellent.
what are the
And
amounts for each
yeah, go
grant?
ahead.
Yeah, I was just asking the amounts for each grant. What's the goal?
So far, just penciling it in. We still have to engage with the potential service provider, but I'm estimating each one would be about $7 million. So 14 in total,
Thank you.
of course.
And I guess just my only last question would be, how quickly can we get this in front of the full board for action? And with the additional sort of thought would be like, sometimes I hate that we have to like have the bureaucratic process of having to have things go to committee first before they can go to the full board, when we know it's something that the board has prioritized as something that they want us to be moving forward with. And so I generally would say like, can for things like this, or we know there's going to be support, or we anticipate, of course, there would be support, are we able to move in parallel, to have discussion on the committee side, but also be getting it agendized for the board to be, while we're also moving it through the committee process. But how quickly can we bring it to the board?
It's actually scheduled for November 4th. So,
okay, fantastic.
yeah, we
Love it. Thank you.
anticipated that it was going to be tight, considering the fact that the board's going to be in recess fairly quickly. So we submitted both in parallel for the committee
Got it.
and the board.
One step ahead of us. Thank you, Roxanne, for all the work you do. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? We'll open it up for anyone in the room.
We have no public comments.
I do.
We've got Wes.
One in the room.
All right, Wes.
I do, of course.
Is there anyone online to public comment? You can raise your hand and we'll get you in the queue, but we'll hear from Wes first.
All right.
Wes Wise, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, co-president. As far as what's going to happen, I know quite a few people along that stretch of road along Davis, and I mean those folks are highly independent, highly functional. If they're all going to get supportive housing, and you're kind of keep more toward make sure everybody's place and everybody's belongings are taken with them. Nothing is destroyed, unless, of course, you can control them out of whatever hoarding aspects they have, but more or less just keeping the root ball intact when you remove these trees with people, and they're pillars of our community, honestly, because they're coherent, they earn their money, they don't do drugs or whatever, so there's beautiful people out there that just can't afford rent, and that's where they're at. So, we need to make sure that everyone is being provided for, taken care of, because you're going to find 95% of people want to participate. They need to have their independence as well, but they're certainly always willing to cooperate, especially for something better. So make sure that's what you're doing and not just robbing them and then telling them to leave, move on, you're a criminal forever, because that's what people are dealing with up into death, and they're not having a good life, and it shouldn't be the jurisdictions that are causing state-created danger from that.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you for the comment. All right, so I think we don't need action on this, but we'll look forward to hearing it on the November 4th with the courtroom committee. Moving on to item number 2 is to receive an overview from Natividad.
We're not giving a recommendation of support?
Oh, sure, we can,
Yeah.
I think, yep, we can give a recommendation of support as it moves on to the November 4th full board, but yeah, sure, support.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is to receive an overview from Natividad and Health Department staff on Natividad Medical
So now I
Center's
can move there?
medical health unit and and the Health Department's Public Guardian's Office. And we have a whole team from the Health Department and Natividad.
It's okay.
Good afternoon, the members of the public, and good afternoon, Supervisor Askew and Supervisor Alejo. Happy to be here with my colleagues from the Health Department and Public Guardian's Office, and with you all, of course. Today, the Health Department, the Public Guardian's Office, and Natividad and its mental health unit are going to present on the workflow and the relationship between the mental health unit and the Public Guardian's Office as it relates to our patients for this committee. I would like to first introduce Annalisa Leal, the nursing director of our mental health unit, who is going to take point and present on Natividad's mental health.
So real quick, they're looking at you're seeing our backs, right? Should
We are seeing you back.
Should we turn? Should we turn to face the camera?
You could just move your chairs the other direction, but we're also going to just end up seeing the presentation on the Zoom.
We could
So
just
we
stay
hear
there.
your voices and see the presentation is what we
Okay.
actually see.
Okay.
Yeah. So it works.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Annalisa. I'm the nursing director at Natividad Hospital. I've been part of Natividad for 20 years, and I've been part of the mental health unit for the last 12 years. So for those of you who may or may not know, Natividad's mental health unit, we are a licensed 22-bed facility. We usually consider us at full capacity when we're at 18 patients. We do have a total of 19 physical beds in the unit, so we use one of the beds as a swing bed, depending if it's a male or female. We are a LPS facility, and we are regulated by Title 22. The reason we're licensed for 22 beds is because we do have our patient intensive care area that it has 3 beds in that area, and each bed in the facility is licensed. We are locked, and our nursing ratio is a 1-to-6, so each nurse has 6 patients. We also do have a charge nurse that accounts, so at full capacity we have 4 nurses on the unit. We have 2 nursing assistants, and pretty much our population are patients who have been brought in on involuntary holds. And those can consist of a 72-hour hold, a 14-day hold, a 30-day hold, or an LPS hold. So most of our clients are admitted on some type of legal hold. So kind of the flow of the patients. Patients arrive in the emergency department. They're either brought in by ambulance, police, family, or staff, and or they can bring themselves. They arrive into our emergency department. They are assessed by our ER physicians, and then our site team then comes down and evaluates the patient. Our psychiatrist also assesses the patient, and then the determination is made whether the patient will be admitted or transferred or possibly discharged with aftercare support. So just to give you an idea of roughly the amount of evaluations that we did, these were numbers that I took from this year alone, from January to around the end of September. For evaluations, we had 1,595 evaluations that were all adults, age 18 and over. We had 353 that were minors, for a grand total of 1,948. Out of those evaluations, we admitted 460 and 0 minors. As if I didn't make it clear earlier, that we do not accept anybody under the age of 18. We are only adults in our unit. So all of the minors have to be transferred. So the next line is the transfers. As you can see, we transferred 182 adults, and that's usually either based on our unit being at full capacity, or if they belong to a different county, we try to get them back to their home county. Monterey, we tend to attract a lot of individuals passing through, and so we try to get them back to their home county. And we have transferred 22 minors as of this year. So, go on to the next slide. This was a little bit of a change. I just wanted to add this. This is a list of all of the facilities that our transfer center uses. And depending on the age of the individual is where they would be transferred. The transfer center definitely attempts to transfer them to the most closest facility to our county, and then they work their way out depending what the individual's needs may be. We have a few facilities that do take them as young as 5 and 4. And unfortunately, I do have to say we have had to transfer a few that have been at this age range. Okay. So on the next slide, I did put in a bit of information of the facilities that we do frequently use, and gave you some information on their bed capacity, just to give you an idea of where these individuals go and the capacity or capabilities that they do have. On the next slide, I did a quick little breakdown of the different types of holds and the criteria to meet these holds. So we recently, in the past probably year and a half, that we've been implementing our 5270, which is our additional 30-day hold, which was a hold that we didn't utilize before, and this was to help some of these individuals and hopefully reduce the number of conservatorships for those individuals who just need a little bit more time. The average length of stay in our department right now is anywhere between 7 to 10 days. On a 5150, 5250, they could stay up to a total of 17 is our regular length of, like, in the regular length of stay that you could stay on these types of holds. But our average is about 7 to 10. The next slide, we have just kind of the flow of how individuals get referred to conservatorship. The physician recommends conservatorship. The information is then passed to our public guardian's office. They review the case and make a determination if they're going to accept the individual or deny the conservatorship. And if it's denied, then we work on a discharge plan, possibly refer them to care court, and then we if the physician feels that the individual still needs more time, then we may end up discharging them against medical advice because we cannot hold them there past their legal hold allows us to keep them. So if they do concur, we inform the patient, gets sent to county legal, goes for judicial review, and then it gets, the individual will get placed on a temporary conservatorship. Patient is served that they will be on the conservatorship, and then they can remain on an LPS conservatorship for 1 year. And during that time frame, they can also appeal for a jury trial if they disagree. But if not, they will be on that conservatorship for 1 year. Once they are conserved, they will be presented to behavioral health to assist for placement for a long-term care facility, which could include, all kinds of different levels. On the next slide, we have our LPS referrals that we have submitted, which have been accepted, which have been denied, and the total amount of the referrals that we have sent in. So, the long-term care facilities on the next slide, these are the different kinds of places individuals can go. Acute psychiatric hospitals, community rehabilitation treatment centers, MHRCs, psychiatric health facilities, and SNFs. So just depending on what level of placement they need. They can also go to like a boarding care. Some have stepped down to Manzanita, which is a step-down stabilization area. So depending on what the individual's needs are is how we get them to the next placement. Something that we recently added this year has been our enhanced case management. We started enhanced case management in May of 2025. And initially when we started this, our population focus was the justice-involved youth transitioning to the community. And we recently, in July, started also with our adults with serious mental illness and substance use disorders. And we've been hoping, with them discharging out of the hospital, we've been signing them up with our ECM program so that we can follow them and assist in their transition once they leave the hospital. As of right now, we currently have about 85 enrolled, and we've been out following the individuals during their transition, and it seems to be doing really well. It's actually, I was joking with Dr. Harris and talked about our census has been down in our unit, and maybe it's just because we're doing a great job with our ECM program. And so hoping that we can assist our patients in getting the care that they need and helping them with that transition.
Good afternoon, everyone. Supervisor Alejo, Supervisor Askew. My name is Sarah Solano, and I am the Chief Deputy Public Guardian here in Monterey County. So there are several types of conservatorships in California, including a general conservatorship. These are typically established for adults who aren't able to care for themselves or manage their finances. There's a limited conservatorship designed for adults with developmental disabilities. And lastly, there's the Latimer Petrus Short conservatorship, commonly referred to as the LPS conservatorship. The Latimer Petrus Short is a landmark California law that reformed the state's mental health system, designed to end the inappropriate, indefinite, and involuntary commitments of individuals with mental health disorders. Through this act, strict legal standards and procedures for involuntary psychiatric holds were established, including the 5150 hold or the 72-hour hold, and civil rights due process protections. Senate Bill 43 is a relatively new statute signed by the governor January 1st, 2024, with the option for counties to delay implementation until January 1, 2026, and that is what Monterey County decided to do. We've decided to delay implementation so we go live in January. SB 43 significantly updates California's definition of grave disability. The old criteria under which people may be civilly detained according to the LPS Act, included danger to self, danger to others, or grave disability. However, SB 43's new definitions expand the concept of grave disability to also include people with a mental health disorder, a severe substance use disorder, or a co-occurring mental health disorder and a severe substance use disorder, who are unable to provide for their basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, and now access to necessary medical care or personal safety. We currently have a total of 17 staff members. Out of the 17, 10 of them are full-time deputies. I'm going to go to our deputy assigned cases on the next slide, but before I go there, we do receive referrals from different sources. Our main source of referrals, they come from the Natividad. We get them from CHOMP, Garden Pavilion, the criminal courts, and out-of-county hospitals. We have 648 active cases, and out of the 648 active cases, 546 are assigned cases. So those miscellaneous 102 cases are unassigned for various reasons. However, out of those 648 cases, 158 are assigned LPS cases, and that's the caseload that I'm going to focus on today. I know Annalisa also went through this process, but this process also includes kind of what the public guardian's office is looking at when we receive a referral. So obviously the patient is admitted for inpatient behavioral health treatment. The physician then will assess for grave disability. So grave disability means the individual has the inability to provide, they only need to meet criteria for one, unable to provide for food, clothing, and shelter. If the patient is not found to be gravely disabled, then they are released, or they could stabilize. That could be for various reasons. If they don't stabilize within either a 5150, 5250, or 5270 hold, then the hospital may refer consideration of referral for conservatorship. So what happens is that the conservatorship office investigates. So we're looking at a lot of different criteria, the investigation. These are in-depth investigations. We're talking to the individual, we're talking to the medical staff, we're talking to families. We are essentially looking, do they meet the legal definition? Do they have the ability or do they not have the ability to provide for their own food, clothing, and shelter? Also, we're looking for least restrictive alternatives. Obviously, we don't want to place somebody on a conservatorship and swipe away all their civil rights if we don't have to. So some of the legal restricted alternatives may be either care court or third-party assistance, someone like a family member, a friend, who is willing to help the individual. If we If we don't agree, then it's denied and the case is closed. If we do agree, then with the physician, then our county council will file a petition with, sorry, that should say Superior Court, not Supervisor Court, I apologize. And then if the court finds that the individual is gravely disabled, then the court may enter an order for conservatorship for a temporary conservatorship or 1 year conservatorship. Each conservatorship that's under a 1 year is reevaluated each and every year. So these aren't in perpetuity. If the individual gets better, if they stabilize, they reach baseline, obviously our end goal is to reintegrate these individuals back into the community, back with their families. So the summary of dates that I started from January 2025 up until October 14th, 2025. So these are the number of referrals that we've received per entity. So Natividad, obviously, most commonly is where we get our referrals. We received 23. Chomp, 1. The criminal court, 13. So the criminal court referrals are for individuals incompetent to stand trial. So they have some sort of criminal component. They tried to go through restoration. Restoration determined that they're incompetent, and so sometimes we will get a referral for consideration of conservatorship. And then other, meaning probably out of county referrals, we have 6. Out of those, we've denied a total of 16. We've accepted and petitioned 18, and currently 2 are pending determination. So there are different LPS facilities according to their needs. So we have 24 at the board and care level. 54 at the board and care level. This is our lowest level of care. 2 are deceased. We don't need to worry about those folks. 3 are in the hospital. 37 are at an IMD level, institution for mental diseases. And this is our second highest level below a state hospital. 1 at a psychiatric hospital, 14 at a skilled nursing facility. Many of those folks at the skilled nursing facility are our aging LPS clients who have both LPS component and physical needs that need to be met. And then 11 at the state hospital. State hospital is our highest level of care.
So just to wrap up, and you'll hear me as a broken record because we've been doing our rounds about just a future opportunity of building a local mental health rehabilitation center campus off of the Constitution. So our clients that are placed out of county, their family unfortunately is not able to visit them, and we know that being connected to their loved ones is critical in their path towards treatment and being able to come back into our community. We heard a little bit from our partners at Natividad that sometimes the demand for inpatient services exceeds the number of beds they're able to fully staff and occupy, and so this could mean that there's longer wait rooms in our local emergency departments, that there's people that are placed in our local mental health unit or other psychiatric facilities may have to wait longer because of the fact that our referral to a higher level of care, whether that be an IMD bed or a state hospital bed, there's a backlog, and so we're put on a waiting list, and so some of our patients end up staying in a local psychiatric facility for much longer than needed, which really impacts the hospital's ability to occupy that bed with somebody who meets medical necessity for that level of care, and is also getting a much lower rate for those days that are considered administrative days. And so in terms of opportunities, in a few years, we'll have hopefully our mental health rehabilitation centers constructed, pending board approval later this month, which will keep our clients in our community, better connected to their loved ones, better connected to their care team, and really provide a quick transfer from our local hospital beds into into those facilities. And so with that, we'll take any questions from the Health Department Public Guardian Office and from Natividad.
Great, thank you so much for this presentation. I know it was something I'd asked for at a previous meeting, and it's one of those services that the county provides that takes a lot of skill and expertise and care and compassion. I know is a really challenging space to work in, and not something that we oftentimes, I think, talk about or really go into detail in terms of explaining the nuances of how this type of programming or this type of care is provided. And thank you for sort of opening the curtain to provide a little bit more of context and an explanation. I'm going to pass it to Luis for starting comments and questions, and then I have sort of a list of some additional comments and questions, and then we can go open up to public comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think it was very informative. This area of care for folks who are I would say have high needs in terms of their substance or their mental health necessities. So thank you for the presentation, first of all, because I agree we don't have these conversations about this service that the county provides for families and individuals who need their loved ones in this type of care. And you covered all the questions I had in terms of how many conservatorships, more or less per year, the distinction between adults and minors. But the two questions I still have would be just on care court, right? So you have the conservatorship process. Now we have a fairly new care court process. How do those two interact with each other? And I know the last presentation we got on care court, we had very few cases. But how do these two different procedures interact with each other, perhaps aimed at serving the similar individuals or similar needs of individuals?
Sure. So during the whole process at the hospital, the care court can initiate several different ways, but through the hospital stay, the doctor can recommend care court instead of conservatorship. Anyone in the community can recommend care court. It can be a family member, it can be a social worker, it's open to anyone. So versus an LPS, only the public guardian's office can file for a petition for guardianship or conservatorship, whereas the care court, anyone can ask and file documentation for the care court proceeding. Here, particularly how the public guardian's office is utilizing care right now is for step down. So let's say we have a individual who's been conserved for several years, and to help them successfully reintegrate into the community, to give them a soft landing, then we do offer care court. One of the components to care court is they have to have a schizophrenia-based illness only, whereas an LPS, it can be SUD, it can be schizophrenia, but for care, it can't be SUD. Elsa, am I forgetting anything?
I think just, for somebody who is still deemed gravely disabled because of their condition, would not be eligible for care court because those individuals have to be in an institution that's best able to meet their needs. And so as Sarah said, for those that have been on conservatorship but are yet maybe not, they're able to care for themselves but might still need additional support, then that's where the warm handoff with the care court would be. And I see Melanie is on. She can help fill in any blanks. And so it would be just an additional layer of support for somebody who's probably more out in a community-based setting, but still needs additional support to fully integrate into the community. I don't know if Natividad does any direct referrals.
So I think the one thing to kind of keep in mind is care court, the individual has to be able to participate and willing. It makes it very difficult, which is probably why the numbers are so down. And it's also a very complex process. I mean, I don't know what the current number is, but when it first came out, it was like 24 different hearings in court that needed to occur where the individual has to show up. And I think Care Court is great, but a lot of our clients that we do refer for conservatorship just would not be willing to participate or able to participate in Care Court. And I think that's where it gets a little bit complicated.
So what are our case court, what do those numbers look like in our, the caseload in our county so far?
For care would probably best be answered by Melanie, since behavioral health oversees those.
And I haven't seen her turn off her mic, so I don't know if she's actually there. Oh, there she is.
I'm here, and I was gonna say a big distinction between LPS and Care Court is Care Court is folks have to participate voluntarily, even though it does have that civil court oversight. So that's a big distinction, is the involuntary nature of LPS conservatorship versus the voluntary nature of care. We have seen other counties across the state, as well as have conversations here between behavioral health and public guardian around using Care Court as that step down from LPS so that folks have a softer landing back in the community. So if they get on a temporary conservatorship or a full conservatorship and then they stabilize in placement and then they're looking to come back to the community to help with that integration, looking at transitioning them into care with some of that continued court oversight. We actually have a situation here in our county where the same judge is overseeing both LPS and care, so there is also continuity there. And then we can step them down from that involuntary to a more voluntary engagement under care, and then hopefully eventually, in keeping with that idea of least restrictive, to voluntary outpatient services back in our community clinics. Our numbers, I know Supervisor, we're preparing to come to the board after that full year of care and present some data. I'm sorry I don't have current data, but I can pull it from our manager and get those numbers to you. I think mostly we have seen a few petitions filed by family members, and we have seen some that have been referred for conservatorship and also care petition, where then we have really partnered with Sarah and the Public Guardian's Office to really determine, looking at everything we know about individuals, what's the appropriate level of care? Is it LPS or is it care? And so we've really been trying to coordinate closely around that as well, but I'm happy to provide you, get some current numbers and provide them to you.
Well, and if you're working on it for another day, Melanie, that's fine, as long as you're gonna work on that one-year report, so I'll look forward to it. And
Yeah, we do plan on coming, we were planning on coming in December, but we'll come in January to this committee to provide a one-year look into the implementation of care, and we'll have all those numbers for you then. If you need them sooner, just ping me and we'll get them to you.
Right, and then last question also, just on how the mental health unit at Natividad would interact with a future rehabilitation center on our property there off Constitution. Would the mental health unit still remain in the hospital, and then as they exit?
Yes.
For the rehabilitation center, right? Okay.
Yes. So look at the hospital as an acute care facility. So we take them in as they come in needing like we would be considered a higher level of care. On my PowerPoint, we put examples of long-term care. So we then transfer them to these facilities once they are accepted. I don't have the details right now as to what exactly the clients that Elsa is planning to put there, because as you could see in her PowerPoint, it had the breakdown of people who are at a skilled nursing facility, which is the aging population, IMD level, MHRC, what is going to be her acceptance or criteria, depending on how she decides to staff it. Individuals that we have sometimes have legal matters that prohibit them from going to certain IMDs. If they're a 290 sexual registrant, we do have a facility that is able to take them, and then we have other facilities that are not able to take them. One of the facilities is too close to a daycare, so, you know, those individuals can't go there. So it just really depends on, once this goes live, what the licensing and the admission criteria will be to determine which individuals will go to this placement. But we would, hopefully, if it does happen, send to our facility, since it's here and it's local, to be able to keep our patients local.
Thank you for that, appreciate it.
Yeah, great, thank you, great questions. I think it's all of these pieces that all fit together, and it is so complicated, and God bless our team for understanding how one piece fits into the next piece. And so I think some of my questions are really around that, and in terms of understanding. So, and I'll go back to this. So currently, we don't, I didn't see under the summary of placement types, we don't currently have any of our LPS placements at an MHRC. Do we have some of our other, of the 648 cases, do we have some of our other placements at an MHRC?
So we do, we do have some that are placed at an MHRC. So one of the common, I didn't bring that list with me, but we do have an MHRC that's located in Delhi, where they actually take some of our forensic patients. They do have a disruptive behavioral unit for our high intensity cases, and they do have their regular IMD with the step down. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think on the presentation.
Looking at the slide
Yeah.
that had the summary placement types, I didn't see an MHRC. That was just the LPS patients that you were looking at, where that those placements are currently.
Yeah, so I think she just
Okay.
classified them as IMD, but because they're locked, but we do have some of those facilities that are classified as an MHRC.
Yes, so you can
the
see that.
IMD placements is IMD, but some of those are classified as MHRC.
Yeah, and some of them are skilled nursing facilities because they are locked, so.
I see.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they do have different classifications, but yes.
I see, okay. And then on, so going back to the mental health unit, and so we have the 22 beds, and I guess, so the folks that come through that facility, are there diagnoses that we're seeing that all, like, what are the diagnoses that does everyone that come through there end up with a diagnosis? Are there standard diagnoses? Is someone required to have a diagnosis?
Yes, so our physicians, we have psychiatrists who are in the emergency department 24/7. So we have an in-person psychiatrist who is down there, and then we do telepsych overnight. But we do have a psychiatrist down in the emergency department 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they do assess the individual, they give them a working diagnosis, and by the end they give them a more of an official diagnosis. Most of the diagnoses that we see, as you know, we have about 98% that are involuntary. So what we're seeing is the serious mental illness patients, the SMIs, schizophrenia, bipolar. We do get a few that have depression, but primarily you see the schizoaffectives, serious mental illnesses with our clients.
And I guess maybe that's part of my ignorance, but so we say, and I don't know what, like when you say serious mental illness or like bipolar or schizophrenia, is that something that it's like, are you able to make a diagnosis of that in a setting of an emergency room or in a setting of a short-term engagement with an individual?
So usually out of the emergency department, they observe the individual, to be in there, to be medically cleared. It does take a process, so they could be there from 10 to 12 hours. If they are admitted, and so at times the doctors will use more generic, like undetermined psychosis, a lot of the ones that do get discharged back home either already have a mental illness diagnosis that they're coming in because they missed their long-acting injectables or they're under the influence of drugs. And so they tend to clear up and can be discharged home. Individuals who then get admitted because they aren't able to agree to treatment or medications or need more time, and so then the doctors work with them to get treatment, and then they make the final determination on their diagnosis based on the time that they've been there and then their history.
Okay, and so the folks that get admitted into the mental health unit, it's a range of diagnoses that are mental health or like assumed diagnoses based on the limited information that we have?
Yes.
Okay, and then so while they're in and then can you go back to the slide that showed, or I have it, I think up on mine, about the number of cases that are referred to, so that the physician in the mental health unit makes referrals for conservatorship. And I think someone had said that there's a goal to reduce the number of conservatorships. I think I've written that down. And so we've been reducing those numbers over time. And is it the same number of referrals? So it looked like there were more referrals being made over time, but less referrals being accepted over time. I didn't get a chance to see those numbers as quickly.
Oh, that's on. Are you talking about the one that we presented from Natividad on slide 10?
Yeah. There was a different set of slides that were presented versus what I had in my notes here. But yeah, so like in 2029 there were a total of 9 referrals, or 2022 there were 9 referrals, in 2025 there were 25 referrals. So I guess it's like 5 were accepted in 2022. 6 were accepted in 2023, 7 in 2024, and 9 in 2025. But it looks like there's more and more referrals being made over time. But yet there was a goal to reduce the number of conservatorships that are being.
So I don't think the goal is to reduce them. I think the goal here, because when you put somebody on conservatorship, you take all of their rights away. And so if there are alternatives to conservatorship, then that is what we're going to explore from the public guardian office. Now, anybody that meets the grave disability because of their severe mental illness, they're not able to clothe themselves, feed themselves, or house themselves, and then that's been determined by 2 psychiatrists and then confirmed by the public guardian office. Those are the individuals that we move forward to the court, through the court system, to be considered for conservatorship so we can get them the right level of care that they need. But we're not going to just conserve everybody just because again, it's, if there are other alternatives to that, if they're willing, as was stated previously, if people are becoming stabilized and they're willing to accept treatment and willing to participate through the care court process, that could be a potential alternative to conservatorship. Or it could be that now that we're instituting the additional 30-day hold with the 5270, then the provider care team has had more time with the client to be able to get them on the right medication regimen and to get them stabilized, and so now they're no longer deemed gravely disabled because of their SMI, and so then they could be discharged back into the community, back into a boarding care or other lower level of care that they need.
Okay, no, that does make sense, that we have more options. So I guess I'm curious, like if the trend to have the number of, unless I'm reading this chart wrong, the number of referrals that are being made to be doubled in such a short period of time.
So Supervisor Askew, 22, 23 was still COVID times, and our census was down during COVID, and placement options were less. If I would have brought the pre-COVID numbers, we actually had, I want to say between 25 to 40 referrals before COVID. So that might help explain 22 and 23.
It does. It does very much. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so then this is sort of returning back to like where the standard referrals were coming in at, and back to where the standard acceptance and denials were at. And so to be more clear, the folks that are coming into the MHU, who are being referred by the doctors at the MHU for conservatorship, these are folks that the physicians are saying, this is someone who maybe I don't have somewhere to like, why would a doctor be referring someone into conservatorship and then that person being, that referral being denied? It's because they're determined that they do have a family member to go home to, that person is able to actually take care of themselves. And so I guess then we rephrase the question, do we see people that are coming into the MHU as being like people coming in and out of the MHU, or they come in for 7 days, 7 to 14 days, and then they don't return again? Or are these people that are coming into the MHU and then they return to the MHU again on a regular basis? How often do we see people cycle in and out of the MHU?
So usually the cases that we refer are individuals who are not getting better with medication, that aren't turning the corner, and these individuals, in order to submit for conservatorship, we have to submit it on the 9th day of their 14-day hold, because we're only allowed to submit the application for conservatorship during that time. And individuals who we submit for conservatorship are usually have been in and out of the hospital multiple times throughout the year, so that we can determine that we have tried other options and we're not successful with their alternative options. Sometimes the individual will say, yes, I'm going to go with my family, and then they go home and the family's not able to support them, and so they'll come back to the hospital. So those individuals, when we send them over for conservatorship, it's usually because they've been to the hospital several times and just need more support, or as soon as they leave the hospital, they're no longer engaging in treatment or taking their medications.
I think it's important, if I may, Supervisor Askew, to understand that the public guardian's law is obligated by law and statute to look for least alternative options other than a conservatorship. And so, although we may have two doctors, and it's important to also understand that the MHU and the treating psychiatrists are looking through it from a different set of lens versus the public guardian's office. So we're looking more at the legal criteria versus the criteria and their acute needs that the doctor may be looking at a client who's being referred. So even though we have a client who, let's say this is their first time being referred, they are severely sick, they can't provide for their own food, clothing, and shelter, but we have a viable source who's willing to help them. By law, we have to allow that viable source to help them and not file for conservatorship.
Got it. 100%, that makes sense. And then one other question about the use of the emergency room, when it comes to like how long someone, and we heard about the other hospitals, right? When we think about our because the other hospitals in our region don't have an MHU, I don't believe.
So,
if I'm correct.
So the only two hospitals that have mental health units is us and CHOMP. Salinas Valley does not have a mental health unit, neither does Me Memorial. A little difference between us and CHOMP is that we are a locked unit and they have what they consider a secure unit, meaning that if the individual is trying to leave, they just need to push the door and the door will open. So they tend not to have individuals who want to leave, they'll look for another alternative placement.
Okay, so if we have someone who is waiting for placement and they're in our emergency, they come in through the emergency room, and we're full at our unit is full, we're waiting for a bed to be opened up, how long will someone wait in an emergency room for a bed to open in our MHU?
That's really hard to say exactly. We transferred over to the transfer center when we became a trauma unit. I actually went and trained all of the call takers at the transfer center. Since we've been with them, our patients get placed pretty quickly. At times with our under 18, they at times take longer to place depending on the needs of the individual and their age. As you can see, the younger they are, it's a little bit more difficult to place because we have limited placement options. One of the biggest things that we asked with AMR was the ability to ensure that we could still transfer some of our kids all the way to Bakersfield, because they do accept our patients who are younger and sometimes more difficult to place. But it really depends. Adults get placed pretty quickly, just depending on the day of the week and if it's full at the other placements. But when San Jose Behavioral Health opened up, our placements are pretty quick.
Okay. And then one,
Time check, I have another scheduled meeting at 3, I moved that to 3:30, but I know we have 3 items and I gotta.
we do, yeah. Okay, no, thank you Supervisor. And then just one final question on this one. So when someone's in the MHU and they are under conservatorship, are there lengths of stay? What's the longest length of stay that someone can stay in the MHU?
Unfortunately, if they are requiring a state hospital bed, prior to the recent changes, we've had individuals stay up to 6 to 9 months. During COVID, we had one that stayed almost an entire year. It used to be very difficult to send individuals to the state hospital. You got on a waiting list and you were basically competing for these beds with the entire state of California. Since the reforms and the changes at the state hospital, we have 11 beds, and I believe we have more, or behavioral health has more liberty to move individuals and put others in depending on who needs the bed and what the individual needs are.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for the report, and I really appreciate all of the information. I think it's important, and a really important area, and for a whole group of folks that I think I need to make sure we're paying attention to the details of what happens here. It was just receive a presentation. We'll do public comment briefly, and then I'm just going to ask if we could, for the remaining 3 items where we have about 15 minutes, if there's any of those items that need action from the board, if we could have those prioritized to go next. Any one of them. I think they're all, we'll just prioritize those as we get public comment. Wes, did you have public comment on this item?
No, I'll pass, thank you.
Okay, is there any public comment, anyone from the public want to speak out on this item number 2? We'll take public comment.
We have Tim Haven online.
Tim
Hello,
Haven.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Tim Haven, okay, so hear me?
Yes.
Tim Haven, the chair of the lead, many involved with the homeless. I just was curious, I think you were alluding to it, Wendy, but what the recidivism rate is, you know, if there was any, you know, like statistics or numbers on the recidivism rate, because I feel like there is a lot of recidivism. And also, if there's like some sort of plan to get people in housing once they leave these facilities. I was really curious to learn more about that, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for always being engaged. Okay, so with that, there's no action on this, and thank you for the information. I really appreciate the report again. We're going to move on to Darby and the housing program team. Our next presentation is on the Home Investments Partnership Program Fund. But Darby and Dawn, I'm gonna ask you guys, is there any of the next 3 items that need action, critical action from this committee in order to move forward?
Actually, all 3 of them.
All 3 of them, okay.
So, I'm the presenter for all 3, so
Okay.
I'll go as quick as I can.
Yes, let's do that.
So we'll start with the Home Investment Partnership Act. Darby Marshall, I'm with Housing Community Development. Earlier this year in May, just as we were submitting our consolidated plan for the Community Development Block Grant to the board, we simultaneously got notice that the county had finally reached eligibility for the Home Investment Partnership Act. This is a grant program similar to CDBG, but specifically for housing issues. We were notified that we will receive about $450,000 this year. We had to come up with some matching funds to make the minimum grant $500. The state is allowing us to tap into some of the dollars that we hold from them. Because of the short timeline, the reason this is urgent is we are taking this to the board on November 4th. And I'm also going to the Urban County Committee at the end of this month, so I'm here because this is a housing-related issue, and I wanted to at least inform you of what our plans are for these dollars and get your input. With the home dollars, as I mentioned, we only have about $500,000 in new grant funds, plus another $112,000 in local funds that are required to match. We're proposing to use about $375,000 for what's called tenant-based rental assistance. Basically, that's the Housing Choice Voucher Program that the Housing Authority administers. It is portable by the tenant, so the voucher goes with the tenant. They then have to find housing, as opposed to project-based, which if I had my druthers, I would give a certain number of tenants at Kent's Court vouchers so that I can make that project more viable. But these are tenant-based. And then the balance will be about $187,000 for housing rehabilitation. I don't expect that to go far because our experience with housing rehab is it is expensive. And because we don't have a lot of experience with these, what I'm probably going to end up coming back to the board and recommending is that the $375,000 TVRA be forwarded to the Housing Authority. For them to distribute as housing assistance vouchers for income qualified households. And the City of Salinas is starting up their housing rehab program again. And I'm thinking that if we could partner with them and use their staff resources to implement this program, we could probably do some good work in and around, adjacent to Salinas. Again, we don't have a lot of money. We only have $50,000 in admin for this. And so I think that if I can pay the city to get their inspectors out and to do the management that they're doing for their other rehab projects, there's probably a good return on investment there. So real quick, that's what we're planning to do with the home funds. I would welcome any input that you might have on these dollars and how we plan to use them.
Great, thanks, Darby. And Supervisor Alejo?
No, I'm just good with the recommendation. Darby, it's not a whole lot of money, but when we could partner with our folks who have been in the trenches with us, the City of Salinas or Housing Authority, it makes sense to get that out and put to good use shortly.
Yeah, so Darby, I guess my question, I'm always, I guess, hesitant to like, I appreciate the idea of using, of rental assistance, but I'm also, I recognize how quickly rental assistance disappears and then it's gone and we have nothing left to show for it. You know, we spent $50 million in rental assistance during COVID, and I guess I'd just be really interested in knowing if there's other critical needs that would allow us to to have something at the end of the day that,
So yes, there are, Supervisor. One of the challenges, we had a very short window to come up with our amended comp plan. And so I did this quickly. We can change it next year and redirect the funds. Yeah, most places will use these as down payment assistance or housing rehabilitation. One of the challenges is the feds set how much assistance we can provide and what the after assistance value of a unit is. And so it's been hard for us to use home dollars in the past in the unincorporated areas because the home values are just so high that we have a hard time qualifying people to get loans and then staying within the limits. Ideally, we would have multifamily projects that are coming up in the pipeline. But again, we just don't have any of those this year that are ready. So I don't really have any place to put the money right away, but I also think we want to try to capture it and make sure that we don't lose it in the future. But yes, there are other things that will give us things at the end of the day, like multifamily rental projects or down payment assistance or housing rehab for income qualified households. It's just, we have to have a critical mass of funding.
and so, okay, and so like the Chispa project that we're moving on East Garrison is not ready to go,
Correct.
and it has to be unincorporated county.
Right now, yes, it does. That's our challenge, is it has to be in the unincorporated areas. I'm really hoping that the project that Mid-Penn is working on Sill Road moves, or Chispa can accelerate East Garrison, but because I do have other money. I don't have projects right now. But I also don't want to lose the opportunity to get money.
Okay, and like financing necessary home repairs or improvements, like we couldn't make money available for anyone that wanted to put an ADU up that was deeded low, for low income. I mean, I know we've got ADUs moving forward throughout the county. People are making those available. They're building those right now. We've got people who want to add those to their properties. And if we were to fully fund it even.
So I'm not sure that, part of this is the county has not had a home grant in over 10 years. I think our last one was I know our last one was in 2010. And I have not had a chance to read through the home final rule in its entirety. So I don't know the ins and outs of everything that is allowed. I know generally that we can fund construction of housing. I know that we can fund rehabilitation, down payment assistance, tenant-based rental assistance, and supportive services to help people purchase housing. But in terms of being as specific as whether or not ADUs are allowed, I don't know the answer to that right now. And this is something that we will be doing research on and coming back as part of next year's consolidated plan, or excuse me, annual plan, and making recommendations for future years. But this is to just tie the funding up this year.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if this is the best option, I'll support what we've got to do to move forward. But like I would have loved to see us find some way to say, even if it's a way to, to look into it a little bit closer, take a closer look at it. If there's any path to, even if it's saying, hey, we'll put $50,000 or $100,000 towards anyone who wants to get an ADU built, and it's deed restricted, affordable, so that we're actually adding more units. We're helping our county meet the arena goals, and we've got a long-term additional unit in the county that's available. I think those are the kinds of innovative solutions for adding something to show for the long term. But I would love to see us be prepared to act on moving forward in some sort of creative outcome solution thinking. So anyway, if there's a path to get to something like that, I would love to be supportive of that. If there's not a path to get to that, and we've got to just take action, I'm willing to back into that option, but that's reluctantly.
There
Let's
is
take it out. Let's
There
take
is
it out
a
to
path
public.
to get there.
Let's take it out to public comment. Tim, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I would just probably refer this to Roxanne's department to collaborate with on. I mean, they're the experts in the county. Yeah, that'd just be my suggestion.
Thank you, Tim. Is there any other public comment?
Yes, we have Z Boykin with her hand raised. I believe it's Zalika.
Zulika? We'll call her Zulika.
Can you hear me?
We can. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. First, I want to thank Darby for working with us on this and trying to get these funds allocated to the housing authority. It will be a great resource for our tenants, and it will help the people that we currently have housed. And to speak to what he was saying about the money in the future, the housing authority, we have recently created a new CHOTO. It's called Wish Monterey County. And it'll be an entity that we can use for home funds on some of our developments. And we do have some planned for next year. So this will be something as to what you were speaking about, Supervisor, asked you about the future projects and keeping affordable units and creating more. So we have taken steps to have that type of entity, to have that available for funding for this type of source next year. But I do agree with what he said this year, and I think we need to move on, and not only just because I'm the housing authority, but with the current state of the government, if you don't use certain funds by a certain time, you kind of risk them recalling them back. So again, thank you, Darby. I agree with everything you said, and we appreciate the assistance from the county.
Thank you, Zulika. Any other public comment?
Roxanne Wilson has a comment.
Great. Roxanne.
I will keep it very short. Number one, I am excited. It's the first time I've heard that we're looking at TBRA as a project, and I'm really excited because we all know that the cheapest way to address homelessness is to stop it before it happens. The only concern that I do have is the short-term nature of it. So if we were to start a TBRA program, what happens to those individuals should the board decide to change our investments in the future? So that's just something to really pay attention to, and hopefully there will be other vouchers made available again through the federal government when we do have those discussions. But I just want to make sure we're paying attention to that so that we're not kind of leaving people in a bad situation by the end of this grant term. But great job, Darby. I like it.
And Madam Chair, I would, these funds, as Darby said, are for the unincorporated Monterey County, but I was also just in terms of getting more housing, if it would have been possible, obviously the project Home Keys that we still haven't got across the finish line in Salinas, that would have been a help, but it obviously wouldn't qualify under that restriction. But that's definitely would put some additional units available to help those that were trying to get out of homelessness.
Actually, Supervisor, we could do Home Key. If the City of Salinas is investing money into the project of their own,
yeah,
the federal regulations do allow us to invest home dollars in that community then. One of the challenges is when we have about $2.5 million in home funds through the state program, and even though they originated with the federal government, the state has placed an overlay that says that the county can only use it in the unincorporated areas, whereas the federal government regs say if a jurisdiction invests, we can invest. So going forward, Home Key or working in partnership with cities, as long as they're bringing dollars to the table, is certainly doable.
Right. Well, I think we'll lean on Roxanne as she's the one who finds the different funding sources to put together to get projects realized. So, but that's why I didn't want to mention that as a possibility. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got public comment. I guess you've got some direction and hesitation about starting a new program that we don't necessarily want, or we're not in a position to commit to continuing. You've got support for working with Zulika, but also a desire to see new units added with dollars that we bring into the community, whether that's through Home Key, through ADU development, and like not leaving money on the table. So with some mixed feedback from the committee, see what you can pull together, and I guess this moves forward to the board.
Yes. It goes next to the urban county and then to the board, but I will incorporate these comments when it does get to the full board.
Okay, got it. I think we move on next to the item 4, rental income generated by Kent's Court, affordable housing presentation. And we've got Darby again.
That would be me. So Kent's Court, as you're aware, is a 16-unit county-owned manufactured home project in Pajaro. The property is deed restricted to being affordable to low-income households. So basically, households earning 80% of area median income adjusted for income size. The property we never really had a rent adjustment program in place. And so we have households that are paying 20% of their income for housing and others that are paying 85% for housing. And neither of those are consistent with what state law for affordable housing is. And so what I am proposing is that we just implement state law and households are assessed rent based on 30% of their household income after a reasonable utility allowance. And the graphic I put up gives you kind of an idea of what the incomes might be out there. Some of these are, some of these income bands, I only have 1 or 2 households, so I'm saying these are averages. But you can see that some of these folks are going to get some pretty big decreases in their rent and try to make it more affordable for them. Some of them, especially at the higher income levels, are going to see some increases. And if that incentivizes them to move out and make that unit available for a new low-income household, I think that is certainly a worthwhile objective. And like I said, this will make things consistent with state law. But because the county owns this, I did want to bring it before this committee before I went to the board to see if you had any concerns about this proposal. With that's staff's presentation.
Supervisor Leal, thoughts?
Yeah, initial thought, Darby, would be on just for those that would get a rent increase, would it be in compliance with state law that I think limits rent increases to 10%, correct?
So because this property has a deed restriction, we're actually exempt from that state law, and I did have that verified by county council. So we can make these rent increases, yes. And they're still, below that the housing authority's fair market rents, which is what the housing authority, what they would pay up to as a rent. So, it's still a really good deal.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, so we could make these, so legally we could make those changes, but how far, back to the question though, is it out of line with the intent or the spirit of the law?
I don't think, okay, so it is legal, according to county council. Where the question would lie is, because these households are now making more than 120%, and in some cases making almost 200% of area median income, is it right do we want to continue to encourage them to remain at Kent's Court when it's supposed to be income restricted to households making 80% of AMI.
No, I guess my question was, making the change in the rent from what they currently pay to what this amount would be, is that difference between what they currently pay and what you're proposing that they pay? Is that more than what the law would allow for if it wasn't technically legal?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and how many years would it take to get to, like,
We would probably, with these tenants, I haven't looked at that, but it would probably be quite some time.
Okay.
Because they are being charged such a below market rent right now.
Okay, so I
A
think
300
that,
units.
yeah. So I think for that issue, I guess if you're looking for feedback from us, I think one of my thoughts would be, I think we would, regardless of what's technically legal, I think we would want to be conscientious to the reality for any family about, pulling the rug out from underneath them. If we were going to make any changes to the rent, I think it would need to be done in a way that tiered and planned out over a period of time, so that people have, and probably in a line, I would think it would make sense to be in a line with what the state has outlined for all other tenants, so as to give those families time to make plans, that would be fair. So those would be just sort of quick off the cuff thoughts. I wouldn't want to be coming into any particular family and saying, we're gonna cause you to have to suddenly make a bunch of changes, because we've suddenly changed the rules in a ways that are unpredictable. But I do think that having looking at the intent of what can support, who we intend to serve and how we need to make sure the rents are fair, I think that it's a good thing to look at, and something that would be appropriate to do. The other thing that I think we're looking at and talking about, the city of Marina owns quite a bit of property on the former Fort Ord, and is thinking also about how rents should be considered and who they want to be, who they need to have, like who they need housing for, and there's I don't know what the deed restriction for Kent Court looks like, but if the need for workforce housing and looking at who the employees are within the region that we do need housing for, if there's the ability or the option to have any of the Kent Court housing made available for any of the workforce that I know the county's looking at needing workforce for. That would be another question that I would just put out there, but I don't know that the deed restrictions that are in place allow for that to happen.
Supervisor, if you would like, I can come back and using Employment Development Department information, come back and give you a presentation on the types of jobs that are in the county and what the median incomes are and how those fit into affordability bands. I think you would be surprised at what we consider workforce, because we really have to have a conversation about how you want to define workforce, and some of the underlying assumptions that we're going to make about workforce housing. And so if you would like, I could come back with some of that basic data to at least help educate you. In a former life, I spent a lot of time with that stuff, so I'm thoroughly familiar with it.
Yeah, no, I know it doesn't, we don't qualify. The definitions don't match up. I just went to thrown out there.
But it might be helpful for you to get a sense for the types of jobs, the number of people in those industries or in those particular jobs, and what the median wages are. Because then we can have an informed conversation about how to design programs to meet those needs and identify where the gaps are.
So do you need direction on bringing this?
So
back?
I do have some information that I will add to my board presentation on November 4th. I will try to address your question. Yes, sir.
Just on this, just thinking about it some more, obviously for those, I always look at this as one, some of these families have lived there for a long time, and the tenants of the county of Monterey, they endured the flooding in 2023. And I know it doesn't generate a lot of income. I've even always asked ways to enhance the exterior, just so it's more, just a nicer neighborhood setting with some landscaping and other amenities that could be added there. But I know we're limited on what we generate from these rental units. They're obviously important to those families, and it makes sense for some of those families that are going to get a decrease in rent, right? That makes sense, but like you're saying, the rent's already pretty reasonable considering where the market's at. But I was just concerned about, out of the 16 units, how many would get a rent increase? And 30 does seem pretty steep, right? And I don't want to just say we're going to increase it because we want to encourage them to move out and allow others to move in. I would certainly be considerate to spread that over 3 years, right? If it's 30% and then 10, the maximum, which is the intent of the law, right? The state intends it to be 10 to be reasonable, to do the same versus getting some of these families who have been there a long time coming to our colleague supervisor church and saying, why are you increasing the rent so drastically to 30%, upon being provided a notice, So I think we're going to get to that point of why go there if we know it's going to cause some hardship on them, or we could spread it over 3 years, but giving them the intent that it is going to increase over time, but that this board is spreading it over 3 years to lessen the adverse impact on them.
Supervisor, I think part of the challenge is some of these households have lived there for a long time, and they've had kids move out, so they now have a lot more extra income, and so we end up with 3 adults living in a 3-bedroom unit. And so we do need, there is a, does that make sense? So, and I'm just looking at, and I just took a very legalistic view and said the state says that you could go to 30 or 35% based on how much, where they fit into the AMI tables. But I can certainly look at spreading it over multiple years. But it would also give us more financial flexibility to do some of those improvements and make it a more attractive property.
Yeah.
Well, and the reality is it's literally impossible to find anywhere else to rent. I mean, so sure, 30%, great, but you cannot find anywhere else to rent that's gonna be 30% of your income. Good luck with that. I mean, that's the reality. I get the catch-22 for folks.
It is. I'm just trying to. I use the 30% because that's what the law was, and it's the same percentage for everybody. Because some households are paying such a small percentage of their income versus others that are paying such a high percentage. So I will have some of this additional information for the board, and that's what I was looking for out of this session.
Right, and it would be helpful to get that. Out of 16, they're going to increase. It would just help. What's the overall impact, and it'd help us to make a decision that makes sense in terms of what their increases will be from 1 year to the following.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item, Fence Court?
I see none online and then in the room.
Seeing none, we're gonna move along. You've got some feedback from us.
Yeah, that was what I needed.
Okay, perfect, and we're gonna go to item number 5, a report on the inclusionary housing ordinance. There's actually a lot here.
I know, and I'm, again, Darby Marshall, this is the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance Update. When we were last before the board at the end of June, we did commit to coming back and reporting by the end of October. So what I'm doing is a status report today, and I'm going to do a full memo to the board, kind of updating them. But there are some critical path items where we do need guidance on how we want to proceed.
And I got 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay, so I'll skip the slides. So basically what we are proposing is that we look at adjusting the inclusionary housing ordinance to make it so that it applies to all projects with 7 or more rental units, making at least 8% of the units with very low, 7% low, and 5% moderate. We want to drop the workforce requirement for the time being because it's not inclusionary, it doesn't help us with RENA, and there was a lot of ambiguity in the general plan policies in terms of when do you apply in workforce 1 versus workforce 2. We had no guidance on the term of affordability for the workforce units, and the fact that the board released the first tranche of workforce units at the Commons at Rogie Road, and then we also had East Garrison Partners having trouble selling the workforce units there. We'd like to have you direct us to analyze the 2010 Inland General Plan Land Use Policies 211 and 213. These are the affordable housing ordinance and the development evaluation system. The state has also told us that because we never analyzed the impacts that the workforce housing requirement could have on the production of housing for all income levels, that we cannot enforce it at this time. So we do have that as well. And then we also want the direction on developing a new in lieu fee, probably something that is more based on the cost to build a tax credit affordable unit. And then have us come back to the full board probably at the end of February with the findings of these analyses and final recommendations. What we're looking at is promoting a housing development from the general plan and the housing element planned growth areas, trying to increase and incentivize the development of affordable housing. Some of our policy and design questions are, what's the appropriate project size? Is it 3 like it is now? Is it 7? At one point it was 1, or is there some other number? What's the appropriate affordability requirement in distribution? Is it 10%, 15%, 20%? And 875, 668, what's the right thing? And staff, we've come to believe that it's probably 875. And then what is the appropriate timing for when affordable units are built or when alternative compliance requirements are allowed and when they have to be met. And then lastly, the affordability term. Right now we are looking at 30 years and 45 years and perpetuity for our ownership programs depending on where the project is located. We really need to streamline that. We need to assess what we really want out of it and are we looking at making sure units are always affordable? Are we looking at helping generate some intergenerational wealth? How do you balance those? And then with the 6th cycle housing element, the assumption that we've made is that in general, we're gonna have 20% affordability, which is going to be a challenge. We have a balancing act. We want to have affordable housing requirements that the private sector is going to meet. But at the same time, state law says we cannot have requirements that are constrained to housing for all incomes. So if a developer were to come in and say, your inclusionary housing ordinance is constraining me from building market rate units, state HCD could agree with it, or would come in and require us to do an analysis to demonstrate why it's not. We're also looking at a compulsory program, the inclusionary housing ordinance, versus a voluntary program like the density bonus, that both of them are intended to help get us affordable units, but one is compulsory, one's voluntary, and it's really hard to incentivize the inclusionary housing ordinance because it's required. I mean, the best incentive is we would get rid of it from the developer's perspective. So right now the ordinance applies to projects with 3 or more units. It's 20% affordability, and everything right now is restricted in perpetuity, which makes intergenerational wealth hard to achieve. The development evaluation system applies to projects that are outside of community areas or rural centers with 5 or more units, and it says 25% inclusionary and 10% workforce, but it doesn't tell me if that's workforce 1 or 2, and it doesn't tell me what that other 5% of inclusionary is. Is it moderate? Is it low? Is it very low? So there's some challenges there. The affordable housing overlay is a challenge. It applies to all projects that want to use that option, and it's 100% affordable. And then we have the affordable housing ordinance, again, applies to all new units, 6, 6, 8, and then a 5% workforce 1, which is not currently enforceable. Statewide, the first inclusionary housing ordinance was adopted in 1979 up in Los Gatos. Monterey County joined the bandwagon in 1980. Statewide, there are 132 mandatory inclusionary housing programs. On average, they trigger at 8 units, and the average affordability for those is 14.36%. So just about 14% of the units are going to be affordable to usually low and very low households. Additionally, there are 82 mandatory linkage or impact fee programs, and typically they require a payment of a fee equal to about 10% of the proposed units. I do have some information. I'll have to put this up for the board. That goes into how things are distributed and how it works. One of the things that I do want to explain is we run off what's called a waterfall. We have a waterfall. So if you have to produce an odd number of very low income units, we roll that fractional unit to being a low income unit, and any fractional unit there goes to moderate. Any remaining fractional unit, the developer can either turn into a unit or pay a fractional in lieu fee. We could also reverse that and say if there's a fractional moderate, it goes to low, fractional low goes to very low. The advantage to that would be it increases the percentage of very low and almost always automatically trigger density bonus concessions or additional units for the developer if that's what they're after.
Darby, I'm gonna interrupt just so, because I know I've got to leave. We both got to call at 3:30
Okay.
just to make sure we. So I know this is also coming on November 4th.
No, this is not. This is just going to be a memo to the board.
Okay, to start with.
Yeah, but Before I go back in, and, because I'm gonna have to spend more money on consultants, I need to know, are we on the right track with what we want to analyze in terms of affordability distributions? And what kinds of considerations would you want us to look at for in lieu fees? And how we calculate the in lieu fees?
Mm-hmm. I think before we spend, I mean, I'll just jump in. I think before we spend more money on consultants, I think we do need to have a conversation with the board. And the other comment or question I'm going to put out there is, you know, I don't know if this is something that the Planning Commission considers or has discussed, but I think it would be worthwhile to have a conversation with the Planning Commission and get some feedback and engage in a, you know, a dialogue. But I'll pass it over to the supervisor to see if you have additional thoughts.
Yeah, I think we need some more, a full discussion with the board, right? Because some of these, Darby, are kind of slight changes, right? From the 7, 8, 5, and now you're saying maybe 8, 7, 5 is better. It's like changing that 1% from the very low category to the, or low to the very low, and then removing the workforce. What does that mean down the road in terms of our approval process? The in lieu fee is always an interesting discussion, because I always say that what we get now for in lieu doesn't really help us build much, you know, when they could be free from that responsibility and they give a payment that really is, it's a nominal amount compared to what it really takes to actually build the unit. So, and then obviously the deed restrictions on the perpetuity, that's another big discussion there, versus the alternatives of 30 years as well, because I know we dealt with that with Morocojo for those families that got a settlement that left that restriction in perpetuity and really making it difficult when they're trying to pass those assets to their children down the road. So these are all key topics, but I think it's one that merits a discussion among the 5 supervisors.
If I may, how much time do you think I should ask for this topic? I mean, we went like 90 minutes at the end of June, right, when I kind of laid the groundwork, but do I need another 90 minutes in December or January, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we need to like lay the questions out very specifically. I mean, I think there's the information, I think a memo that goes out, and I think maybe having some one-on-one conversations with each office in advance will give you a good sense of where everyone's at in advance of coming, and will help you then know which issues are going to need the conversation and where the question points are. And I think you can do some of that legwork, you know, like kind of like some of the questions, right? Like, you know, is it 30 years or is it in perpetuity? Like, you're gonna know, like that's a question of like, that's a count to 3 kind of question where you're gonna know where the answer is after having conversations. But then you just lay that out. That's a like, I need direction on question A, question B, question C. But it would be a one-on-one. I think make the rounds before.
Hopefully, we know what other jurisdictions are doing too, Darby, like, right? And somebody questioned, where do other cities stand? Where do the Santa Cruz County or SLO stand? Kind of let us put this discussion in context of what are other counties, what are they currently doing, and has it helped them advance housing construction and addressing some of these key questions? It would just be helpful looking at what our neighbors are doing.
So I did have information on how other inclusionary programs are structured. That was all in attachment A.
I'm just going to do another quick time check. I know we've got to call it quick. So I'm going to open this up to public comment to see if there's any public comment on this item. Is there anyone with us for public comment on this inclusionary housing ordinance item? If you're with us and want to make public comment.
There are no public comments.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised either. So we'll close public comment on this item. We'll bring it back just so we can wrap it up. We've got 1 final minute to close out. Any other final comments, Supervisor Alejo?
I like doing the one-on-ones with Darby and the supervisors in advance to that next meeting, I think it would save time, but also allow the one-on-ones, just honing in on those on an individual basis, I think would be helpful to the larger discussion there.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah, and then, and then I think it is something that's like, it's gonna require some conversation, but getting really clear about what the questions are that we need direction on from what the next steps are.
Okay, that should be.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
With that, we are going to close this meeting. Thank you all for your patience with the extended conversation about the mental health unit. Our next meeting is scheduled for, I don't know when.
This is the last
but
meeting of the year.
This is our last meeting of the year. Thank you all for your for participating in our extended presentations about all of our departments this year. I know I learned a lot, and thank you all to the staff. Thank you, Roxanne, for taking the leadership in organizing everything this year. I don't know who's going to be taking over for stopping us next year, but we appreciate all of the support, and we'll see you all next year. Thanks.
Thank you.
Last before you leave,
Is on
Oh, great.
board. We're going out
Yeah.
medical order.
Oh, yeah. I thought I heard something about direction from Wendy saying.
She wants us to
So,
Oh, yeah.
opine on it
Well,
and work with you, but I gotta go back to my
I
office.
mean,
and talk to my boss.
if it would help, I apologize, I suppose, for whatever. I mean, I was blocking an empty chair.
I don't
you
think
know?
it was, I don't think we were like I wasn't here that day, it was someone else, but from what I heard, it wasn't anything like that. I think it's more that, under the law, we are required to allow videotaping, right? You're allowed to videotape as long as you're not persistently disruptive, is how the legal phrase goes. And how they define that is there excessive noise? You're very quiet, so there's not that. Illumination, is that disturbing someone, like getting flashed in the eye? You don't do that. And then the other one is, I gotta look it up, is obstruction of view. So I think that's more what they're worried about, and that we have to apply the law fairly. So if we allow you in there, we gotta allow other people in there. Now you might say, well, there's nobody here but me, which
At
is
the
something,
moment.
which is, yeah, at the
Who
moment,
knows? Maybe
right?
you'll be popular, yeah.
Yeah, and then we get a
Okay.
lot of people in there, and then the people on the dais can't see.
Sure.
So I think that's part of the concern. And
Okay.
then by law, there's no
But-
legally mandated distance that we have to allow you in. And so I think that they're saying that's a reasonable thing. We're allowing you to do it. And it's no different than when you're at the Board of Supervisors. Like at the Board of Supervisors, it's not like you can go up by the dais and look at the people who are speaking. You're also doing it from the side there.
Right.
But I will talk to my boss and I can't make the decision, but I will talk to them, and we all know who you are. We all know you're very professional, and you're very,
Appreciate that.
even in your comments, you're very thoughtful. I don't think anybody has any problems with you and the way you do it. I think it's more that we have to apply the rule sort of universally. And so we want to make sure we're doing it in a way that's fair and that's not obstructive. And so I think that's the main thing.
Well, the obstruction was what, an empty chair? I mean.
I know.
I
In
mean,
this,
I understand,
yeah.
it's just improper.
Right.
And it was only during, like Wendy said,
Yes.
for
Yes.
the presentation.
Right,
and I moved right back.
Yeah. You were very sweet
I
with
mean,
me today. You really were. You were very, very nice. So let me talk to her and see what she has to say, and talk to others in my office. I think they might end up saying we've got to apply the law universally and fairly across the board.
So
But
just
but maybe not. They
lower
might say,
the standard instead of raising the bar.
Right. But they might. Well, that's not what law does. But they might say, okay, we can make an exception at this point. But if we get more than someone else coming in, then we've got to say
Sure,
no.
yeah.
But we'll see. I can't promise you anything.
Hopefully in the singular, it's not an issue.
Right.
Yeah? Okay,
Yes,
great.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
But I'll
thank you.
definitely
I appreciate
ask,
that.
and we'll come up with something. I
Wonderful.
just wanted you to know I was on it.
Excellent. Okay, good.
Okay.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to be adversarial, confrontational. It was just a reaction.
Yeah.
I mean.
I don't find you to be that way at all.